This is Amud Yomi Gemara in Shabbos, Daf Ayin Zayin Amud Aleph, and we like to dedicate all the learnings Schos Talmud Torah Berabim as an incredible Schos for Shlema of Miriam Ahuva Bas Esther, as well as Tinoik ben Miriam Ahuva Psiata Deshmaya the Schos Torah, which knows no bounds, should bring a complete and quick refuah Shalema to Miriam Ahuva Bas Esther and Tinoik ben Miriam Ahuva. We're holding the last line of Ayin Vav Beis Amar Rav. We just finished saying that the reason why you need enough wine to dilute and put water in to create a kais yafa. And what is a kais yafa? We said it's kaishal bracha. And how much is that? A rav ravias, a quarter of a ravias of pure wine, so that when you dilute it, you get the ravias. Rava comes along in the last line and he teaches us afana nami tanina. Moving over to today's Amud Ayin Zayin Amud Aleph, says Rava, we as well could learn this from the Mishnah. That says, the Mishnah, Hamoti Yain K'dei Mizigas HaKais, carried out enough wine to mix a cup with it, V'tani Allah, and the Brisa explains on this Mishnah, K'dei Mizigas Kais Yafe, V'katani Seifa. And the end of the Mishnah said, V'shar kol hamashkin b'revi'is, and all other liquids is revi'is. So what do we see? We see that one is not chayiv when it comes to other liquids that one generally drinks if they're less than revi'is. So must be that the reason that one is chayiv for taking out enough of the undiluted wine in a smaller quantity is to get to the revi'is, because the revi'is is the quantity normal of drinking it. And therefore we see from the Mishnah that how much is the kais yafe of Berch Samazain? Everything equals up. It's a quarter revi'is to get to the final revi'is. It says the Gemara, Rava, who felt this was a raya, is a Rava l'taimei. Tamar Rava, 4 lines down, says Rava, Kol Chamra Tildari Al Chad Samaya. Any wine that does not contain 3 parts of water for every 1 part of wine, Lav Chamru is not wine. Rava is of the opinion that when you dilute wine, it's 3 to 1. And therefore, in the Mishnah, Rava holds a quarter revi'is of pure wine is going to be the amount that when you mix it now with the rest of water to equal the revi'is, will be the quantity for the koshel bracha. Amar Abaye, son Rava, 1 second. Shtei tshuvos badavar. Says Abaye, I have 2 kashas. There are 2 reasons why you cannot bring a raya from the Mishnah that kais yafe is going to be a revi'is, starting with the quarter revi'is of undiluted wine. Chad, number 1, says Abaye, tonight we learned in the Mishnah, Nida, V'hamazoig. The color of diluted wine is Shnei Chelkei Mayim Ve'echad Yayin. 2 parts of water and 1 part of wine. Continues the Mishnah, Menayayin Ashiroini, that when do we say that it's 2 parts of water and 1 part of wine? When it's wine, from Sharon, Yayin Ashiroini. So what do we see from the Mishnah? The Mishnah seems to prove to us that dilution is 2 to 1, not 3 to 1, like Rava said. So Kasha number 1 says Abaye, Mishnah Nida, 2 to 1. Void, and furthermore, as Abaye, you, Rava, wanted to say that the whole raya is that when you mix it together, you're going to get to the revi'is. Mayim bikadu mitzarfim. Says Abaye, it could be that water is in the barrel and it's going to combine to make one chayiv for the wine. How could it be? It makes more sense, says Abaya, that it must be the reason why you're chayiv for taking out the undiluted wine is why? Because there must be some usage to that wine, and not because of the resultant. Abaya couldn't fathom that the reason why you're chayiv for the undiluted wine is because you can put water in it. Says Abaye, that can't be. It must be there's an intrinsic maila, there's an intrinsic something to the undiluted wine. Says 2 kashas of Abaye. Omar le Rava, 10 lines down. The first one line is umitztarfim. Abaye, kasha number one from the Mishnah Nida was from the one in Sharon, and that you wanted to ask me that Rava said it's a quarter of years, equaling up to Revi'ez. Says Rava, a teretz which I'm sure everyone anticipates. Don't ask me. The Sharon wine, that's special. Why? There particularly, you had to mix it in a ratio, of 1 to 2 because dirape, that wine is weak. But in general, 1 to 3 would be the dilution. Inami, another reason I'll tell you why the Sharon wine needed more water. Hasa misham chazuta. There in the Mishnah Nida, the reason it was 2 to 1 was because of the appearance, the necessary color of the wine. Avol l'taimei, but when you want to come to taste it by itvei, 1 to 3 is necessary. Meaning over there was discussing 1 to 2, as then it would have the look of wine. But in reality, 1 to 3 is the amount for the proper taste of wine. Utka amrit. And Abayi, what was your second gasha? Mayim bekadim mitzarfin. You were bothered that there's going to be water in the barrel and it's going to combine. Says Rava in response, Linin Shabbos midi dechashiv binan. Says Rava, yeah. What's the problem? Hilchas Shabbos as to what is chashiv, what is significant. Vanamia chashivu, and this little bit of wine is indeed significant because it can be mixed. So you're bothered, because it can be mixed, it's chashiv? The answer is yes. Eino chanami, because once it has the chashivas that it will be mixed, that's enough to create the chiyuv. Continues the Gemara, Tana. We learned in our brayso, we're smack in the middle of the Amid. The first word on the line is vehanami Tana. Yavish b'kezayis. If you carried out yavish wine, how can you have dry wine? Wine is a liquid. Liquids are wet. Yavish wine is going to be congealed wine. How much you chayav for? B'kezayis. An olive size piece. Divrei Rebbe Nasan, the words of Rav Nasan. What's the reason? The reason is, we think right now, it's because when you take a cup of wine and it congeals, it shrinks to the size of a kizayis. And therefore, it's going to have the same chashivas of a revius of wine. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yosef, Rav Nasan, Rav Yosef, Rav Yehuda, Amru Davar Echad, Rav Nasan, which is whom we just said, that wine congeals to kizayis, is the same thing as Rav Yisrael, Rav Yehuda that we find elsewhere. Which is what? Rav Nasan is Hadamar. Rav Yehuda is the Tanu Tanah Brais. Rav Yehuda Imer. Shisha Dvarim Mekuli Beishamim Mechumrei Beis Hillel. 6 items are kulas of Beishamim and Chumra of Beis Hillel. Tam Nevela. The Machlaik is about the blood of Nevela. Beishamim Mitarin. Beishamim says the blood of Nevela does not make one tahar, excuse me. Beisil Mitamim. Omer Rav Yisrael Rav Yehuda. Av Kishatimu Beis Hillel. Even though Beis Hillel say that the blood of the nevela does indeed make you tamei, Lai tamu ella, how much? Bedam sheyesh by revius. Why? Hayel v'yachal likroish v'lamoid al kizayis. Because such amount of dam could congeal to the size of a kizayis, and therefore, just like a kizayis size, an olive size piece of nevela would make tamei, so too a congealed piece of dam would be metame as well, says Beis Hillel. Omer Abaye. So the Gemara wants to say that this din of Rav Nasan and this other din of Rav Yosef Rav Yehuda are both stemming from the same place. That dam in the size of kizayis is in reality the same thing in congealed form. It's the same as dam is a revius. Says Abaye, no, maybe the two dinim are not related. Ad Kalnukam Rav Nasan. Rav Nasan over here only said that regarding Shabbos that you need a revius. Elabiyayin deklish is wine, which is a thin liquid, and therefore when it congeals, it comes to the size of an olive. But that's wine. So we have to realize the Gemara was equating wine and dam, and we were assuming that they're both liquids. So when they congeal, it's the same amount of a kizayis. Says Gemara, no. Wine is inherently a thick liquid, and therefore that's why it ends up the size of a kizayis. Aval b'dam d'smich, but blood which is thicker, k'zayis loy boyi revius. An olive-sized piece would not be a revius. Inami, that's one way to split the two. Adkan, which again, of course, we could understand that blood is a very thick liquid, and blood is thicker than wine. Inami, adkan l'komer Rav Yehuda asam, the k'zayis sagila b'revius, that a k'zayis is enough to equal a revius. Aval b'dam d'smich, but blood which is thick, and therefore, when it congeals, it doesn't get that much smaller. That's when it's a k'zayis. Aval yayin, the other way, which is the klish, is not that much water in it, and therefore, when it congeals, it will not be. It will be much smaller. K'zayis have a yoisim revius, so if it will be a k'zayis, it will be even more than a revius. Therefore, you'll be chayiv even less than a k'zayis. We'll pick it up from the two dots. B'siyata dishmaya.